this stuff we're learning because we don't have any double portions and it gets a little easier. Okay, so moving on to today's Tanya, we're holding the beginning of the final chapter of Tanya. So let's do a little recap with Hashem's help. And yesterday, I know I did 4 days of Tanya. It was very intense. Hopefully we can slow down. We learned a lot of Kabbalistic, Hasidic ideas of the makeup of Hashem's makeup of the world. So we basically said, just to recap, that everything in this world is like a light turned on. It's revealing what's already there. So we're going to say that Hashem is really everywhere, the essence of God, and it's just that we can't see it. If we would see it, then we would melt, we would disappear, we would cease to exist. But what happens is Hashem turns on the light and reveals a little bit what's really going on, what's really going on. Now, just like in a person, we said there's a brain which has the first light of energy, it's that the soul is revealed in the body. And even though the soul's everywhere, just like Hashem is everywhere, you just can't see it. The same thing is in the body, you don't see it, but the revealed energy of the soul is revealed in the brain. And then the brain is wired to everything else and brings that energy to every part of the body the way it needs it. So the same thing is that the original revelation, the manifestation, the original light turned on, which the world could physically, literally see it, is in the first of the 4 worlds, the world of Atzilus. And at the lowest level of Atzilus, which is called Malchus, that is the first manifestation and revelation of the light turned on, where existence could start to exist and see Hashem and existence. And so it didn't just turn the light on, but that light, that the world could see it, the light turning on actually made the world. Okay, so on the level of how much the light's turned on is how the creations will look based on that level of light that it's giving us. So if it's a lower world, that's because it's more hidden and you can't see the light as much lower than above. So here we go. So, right? I'm not going to go through the whole yesterday's class, but that was some of the ideas, and hopefully it will help us get into today's class. When the first temple stood, because we know there was the first temple was for a little over 400 years, and the second temple was for a little over 400 years. The second temple was much lower level of holiness than the first temple, and one of the big reasons is because the first temple had the tablets and the ark and the tablets that were given to us from God. Moses got it directly from Hashem on Mount Sinai, came down from the mountain with them, and they brought this unbelievable holiness, as we'll see in today's class, into the Temple Mount, and so on, and that's why the temple was a very holy place. Now, so during the second temple, it was already hidden. At the end of the first temple, one of the prophets, they knew that the temple was going to be destroyed, and they dug deep pathways in underneath the temple in the Temple Mount, and they hid the ark and the tablets there. So during the second temple, they didn't have it anymore already. They had the whole Beis Hamikdash, but they did not have perhaps the most important piece inside the Holy of Holies. They had a Holy of Holies and so on, but it was only in the first Beis Hamikdash, and that's today's discussion about that unique holiness. Behold, when the first temple stood, during that period of time, the first temple, the tablets within the ark were within the Holy of Holies in the Temple Mount, which is a very hot discussion today, right? We also the news the last few days of the struggle over the Temple Mount. Well, at that time, there was an unbelievable holiness inside the Holy of Holies. Now, and very interesting that it did not flow in the normal, regular manner to our world. The energy that came down with the tablets into the Holy of Holies was not using the regular system of contraction and evolution as it came down in order to create our world, limit the holiness with more and more shades and covers to limit that holiness. It wasn't that kind of a system, interestingly. It kind of jumped and skipped from a very high world to a lower world. So again, we believe, as we're saying in Kabbalah, there's 4 major worlds. Atzilus is the first one, then goes Bria, then goes Yitzira, and then goes Asiya. As we explained at length in yesterday's class, the highest level in each world, which is the intellect of the world, is the highest energy and level. And then the lowest is the 10th energy of that world. The lowest level is called Malchus, and Malchus becomes the mother, which is one of the analogies, that will then give birth, take the energy from the higher world and give birth to a new world, to a lower world. And that energy, as it goes down into the next world, into the second world, which is called a Bria, will become the Holy of Holies in that next world. So the lowest world of one world will become the lowest level in an upper world, will become the highest level for the lower world below it. And that will happen through world 1 to world 2, and then it'll evolve to world 3, which will evolve to world 4. Finally, it'll come to the Beis HaMikdash, to our world. What happened, interestingly, is going to say today is that in the Holy of Holies, the Beis HaMikdash, it skipped. It did not go through world 1 to world 2 to world 3 to world 4 to the temple. It went from world 1, the lowest level of world 1, which is the beginning of Revelation, into the beginning of world 2. And that is what went straight into the Holy of Holies, to the Beis HaMikdash. That's the ark and the tablets that Moses got from God, brought a very high level of another dimension, world number 2, into revealed into our physical world. And that's what made it, that was so holy about it. As long as you had the ark and the tablets, which were where it only went from Atzilus, the highest world, into the second world, and once it got into the second world, it was put, that energy went straight to the Holy of Holies in our temple, and that's why it was so holy. So let's see inside. The Shechina, which is the name we use for the godliness coming down and into the lower level. She Malchus Atzilus, which is the level of Malchus of Atzilus, the lowest level of the highest world. She Bechinas Giliyar and Tzei Baruch Hu, which we always talk about. The highest world is the revelation of godliness. That's the manifestation. And the lowest level in the highest world manifests that infinite energy of Hashem in the first manifestation and revelation of holiness in our in the beginning, the chain link of evolution of godliness in our world. Starts from the level of Malchus, the lowest level of the highest world of Atzilus. That energy, as it's coming down into Bria, into the second world, that energy is the 10 Commandments. That's the energy of the 10 Commandments. V'yasser seis, v'yasser ois. And it's a tremendous energy, the Megillah Rav Atzum, with a tremendous light turned on, a tremendous revelation. Higher, it skipped from higher than worlds that are above us, because we are the lowest level of the lowest world, which is Asiya. So it didn't go to the Holy of Holies of the fourth world, the world of Asila, and it didn't even go to the Holy of Holies of the world of Yetzirah. It skipped 2 worlds. It went from world 2 straight into a location, a physical location, into our world, which is why it was a beyond world experience, because it was really another world that was within our world. Yes, why? Why is it that the 10 Commandments had world number 2, which is the manifestation of, the beginning of world number 2, which came directly from world 1 right into world 2, and then that came right here. Because the 10 Commandments are a generalization of the entire Torah. Within the 10 Commandments, you have the whole rest of the Torah. And in the 10 Commandments, so the Torah, the source of Torah, of wisdom, is from the highest level. It originates, it originates from the beginning of the world of Atzilus. So if you remember, we also used the term in yesterday's class. There is the world of manifestation and the world that's higher than manifestation, which means it's revealed or it's not revealed. Where do we call that breakup? Where is that difference that manifestation begins? That begins in world number 1. The top part, the intellect of world number 1, is beyond manifestation. It's intellect of Torah, how it is by infinite level of Hashem, by God. Where does manifestation begin? At the bottom of world 1, as world 1 is about to go into world number 2, that's where manifestation begins. That's called Malchus, that lowest level. Torah comes from the intellect and wisdom, originates from the intellect and wisdom of world 1 of Atzilus, of intellect. It actually originates from a level higher than manifestation, which is very interesting if you were able to follow yesterday, which we said that's why Torah doesn't get melted up by the revelation, the light that's turned on, and the manifestation that's turned on, because Torah essentially is higher even than the light that's being turned on and shown into our world, because Torah is higher. So the Torah, which originates in higher than the light turned on, higher than manifestation, higher than the revealed energy of Hashem, because it comes from God's, closer to God's essence, to the intellect that's beyond revelation, that is Torah. Torah is intellect. Torah is God's intellect. That level of intellect actually comes from higher than revelation and manifestation, higher than the light of Hashem being shown to us. And that, and now we're talking about the tablets. What is the tablets? The tablets is the source of the whole Torah. So of course the tablets will hold in it this great level of intellect. In order to take this intellect and God put them in stone to give them to Moses, God didn't make the tablets go through the evolution through all the through worlds from one level to the next. Like everything else that's in creation, that it had to go through this whole evolvement and contractions to get to our physical world. It didn't go like everything else. Why not? Why did God not want the Torah, I guess, to go through that same system? Because God wanted the Torah to be revealed, that it's God's Torah. Because our physical world, our world is run in a very natural way, Mother Nature, right? In a very physical, natural way, that there's all the rules of nature that are controlling it. But the tablets, the tablets themselves, they are God's handiwork. They're not made in the physical essence like every other contractor or carpenter makes a thing down here. These are not regular stuff. These are made by the hand of God. And the writing, not just is the rock, the sapphire, whatever stone it was made of, was made by Hashem, but even the writing within the rock is made with the finger of God, that God made it. He says an example of a miracle, how you'll see this idea. He says an interesting thing is that some of the letters in the luchot, in the tablets, was the letter mem, and the letter final mem, and the letter samach. Right in our screen, actually, it says v'ham michtav elokim, the last letter of God's name elokim, the mem, the final mem. That is one of the miracle letters. Why? Because if you engrave the letter final mem in a rock, the middle of the letter, the middle of the engraving, and by the way, because it went through from beginning to end, the middle of that mem would fall out. The rock part of the middle would fall down. It wouldn't stay centered in the middle. The reason it did shows us that it was a miracle. Basically, this whole physical carpentry made into the rock and the writing in it, the rock that was made, so it really was a godly item within the physical world. It was a protrusion of a much higher level into our physical world. The Maila Mateva, another dimension put into our dimension. It was higher than nature, from our physical world that's under the rules of nature and so on. That the rest of our world, it goes from world 1 to world 2 to world 3 to world 4, gets into world 4, becomes the holy of holies of world 4, like the brain in the body, the brain of world 4, our physical world, and then from there it shoots off and gives life to the rest of the physical world. And that is the rest of the world gets its energy by this way of evolution of becoming the revealed light brain, the holy of holies within our world, which our physical mundane world came from that fourth dimension, the fourth world. But not the tablets. The tablets that were stuck in the holy of holies jumped from world 2 into our world. The Torah which originated in the first world, Atzilus, and from the first part of the first, the intellect part of the first world, which is Chachma of Atzilus, that is the essence and the 10 commandments. The Slavish of Malchus Atzilus to Bria Levadan only went down from that world of Atzilus to the lowest level within the first world, the world of Malchus, and that gave birth to the Holy of Holies of the next world, world number 2, and straight from there it came down to make the tablets, which was put in the Holy of Holies. And they alone are one with the infinite energy of Hashem. So the rest of the world gets its way by way of evolution, but the tablets are the beginning of world number 2, which came down from being birthed from the bottom of world number 1, but really they originated in higher. They have to start from the bottom of world number 1 because that's where the beginning of manifestation starts. So I guess some of it has to be manifested into our world, but the truth is they stop as soon as they were manifested from world 1 into world 2. Right here is how it came down to us, but they originated in the intellect of world 1, which is really higher beyond manifestation. So it's birthed into world number 2, which is intellect, and we're able to understand it, but the truth is it originates from something that's higher than understanding. And that's where we use the term Shechina, which means it can come down from a higher world and dress up into a lower world. Which that tremendous energy of the beginning of world number 2, that is the revealed, unbelievable energy that was in the first place on Migdash. That with the tremendous miracle was put into these stone of the tablets and written in by God, engraved, and they held in them this energy of another dimension of another world within our world. The Ma'aser Elokim Heiman, they were the formation of God. Well, Amad Iskasya, so the tablets are something that originated from the world of concealed world beyond manifestation, and Makana Bailam Abriya, which then a little bit went into the beginning of the second world. Those are so Kabbalah know it. So that is why there was a tremendous holiness inside the Beis Hamikdash. I think that's the end of today's sign. I think the goal of where we're going to go is, what about when the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed? So then what happens? And the answer is going to be, it's only where a Jew sits and learns Torah. So where we study Torah today, that is where Hashem is really revealed. That's where we bring the revelation and godliness of Hashem into our world. And that's why it's so important that we learn Torah and do mitzvahs. And that is the overall, continue learning about this tomorrow, but that's the overall picture. Any questions or comments on today's Tanya? No? We good? Okay. So that